Hello, and welcome to this Podcasting 101 tutorial, Editing with Audacity, from the Harold L. Drimmer Library at Westchester Community College. Our previous videos covered good practices for creating a basic podcast and the initial steps to set up and calibrate our devices and start recording. In this video, we will demonstrate how to use some of the most useful editing features in Audacity to fine-tune our audio file. To continue editing your project, it needs to be saved in the AUP3 file format. Once the podcast is finished, it will be exported as an MP3 file, which can be played on any device. The AUP3 file saves the individual audio layers so you can reorganize their order and adjust their sound. We will look at sound quality, including noise reduction, in another video. Go to File, Save Project as, and name your file. It's good practice to save your project once again with another file name, for example, adding the date, and edit that version of the file, and keep a copy of the unedited file. This way, if you make too many changes, you can always start again. In the audio track window, we see a visual representation of our voice patterns. In between the waveforms representing words and phrases are flat sections of silence. Shorter sections of silence separate words, and longer ones separate phrases. Click the play button and listen to the audio all the way through. Observe the waveforms as you listen to the audio. You'll get the hang of saying not only your speech, but of recognizing all the other sounds, like inhalations before beginning a new phrase, or ums you may have added. It's still difficult to know what is on the tracks. More recent versions of Audacity include track labels that allow us to add notes, which will help when we begin to edit and reorganize our audio. If we're going to import tracks recorded by others, a good first step is to label our track with the speaker name or some other descriptive label. Click into the track name, which defaults to Audio 1 Number 1 for the first track, and type your preferred label. When we begin to create audio clips, it'll be obvious why this is a good idea. Now that we have our initial recording, we want to edit out all the bits we don't need. In our toolbar, the selection tool is the default. For some tools, we'll need to exit out of their function by clicking on the selection tool. So if you're unable to edit or highlight a track or clip, make sure selection is highlighted. Click into the sound wave panel and highlight a selection of audio and hit the play button to listen to it. By replaying individual sections, we can figure out which phrases, individual words, or sounds we'd like to edit out. One option is to delete a section of audio by highlighting it and using your computer's delete key. This will remove it completely from the track. This is especially good for sections where we flubbed our lines, or where we realize we paused too long between sentences. We can also silence a section, which will allow the same amount of time to pass, but gets rid of all the sound. The silent audio icon looks like two sound waves with a straight line between them. To silence a section of audio, highlight it and click the silence audio icon. Silence can be useful to keep the flow of the narration sounding natural and not like you've never taken a breath. And of course, everyone's favorite tool, undo, is available under Edit. So don't panic about deleting something by mistake. This is a good time to make a first editing pass and remove everything not wanted in the recording. Once that's done, we'll go back to File, Save Project As, and save our file again as a new AUP3 file. Next, we'll move on to using the Audio Clips tool to divide our audio file into sections and reorganize them. The Audio Clips tool, found under Edit, allows us to divide our tracks up into smaller parts using the Split and Split as New functions. We can then reorganize them in case we realize after recording we should have said point B before point A. When we highlight a section of audio and select Split, It leaves the new clip on the same audio track layer. This allows us to add time between the clips, but not reorder them. If instead we select Split as New, it'll put the new selected section on a new track layer. Split as New is a bit more flexible as we are able to move the track to a completely new position. Your working track layer will always be highlighted above and below the sound wave with yellow bars. Click the label to highlight the clip to drag it to a new position. In older versions of Audacity, you'll need to select the Time Shift tool in order to move a clip. If tracks overlap each other in the timeline, they'll play at the same time. Click play to hear the tracks and adjust the space between them for a better listening experience. Use the Zoom Out tool in the toolbar to shrink the timeline and view a longer part of the audio track to select longer clips. Once you start clipping and moving tracks around, it's good to start relabeling them with content information. This will make it much easier to edit the project. Otherwise, it'll be necessary to re-listen to clips over and over to know what they cover. We'll reorganize our track until we're happy with the pacing and the sequence of our narrative. Click the 0 mark in the timeline and then play it from beginning to end. Once finished, it's time to save our project again as a new AUP3 file. At this point, you may decide you've got a finished audio file. If you recorded the audio in one session, everything may sound even throughout the project. If your podcast is complete, go back to File, Export, Export as MP3, and now save your project as an MP3 file. This is a common audio format that anyone will be able to listen to. Be sure to also save your finished version as an AUP3 file too. In this video, we've learned how to make basic edits to our audio track. Using delete and silence, we've cut all unwanted parts from the initial recording. Using the split and split new function allows us to reorganize sections post-recording. Labeling clips makes it easier to edit, especially when working with multiple tracks. Saving often as an AUP3 file is also good practice so we don't lose our work. It could be there's still some fuzziness or background noise we'd like to get rid of. Maybe we need to import audio from our classmates or an interview. In the following videos, we'll look at how to adjust the sound quality and import additional audio. If you have questions about anything covered in this video, please visit us at answers.sunywcc.edu to get help from me and the other librarians, or to browse the library FAQs for additional help. You can also call or text us when the library is open. This is the end of our Editing with Audacity podcasting tutorial.